Hey, what's going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today I want to talk about why I call myself Mr. Kingdom Builder and this idea behind kingdom building versus alliance building, which I think often gets misconstrued in how one thinks of it and where they value a level of importance on one side or the other. And so today I'm going to start off and talk about the value that I like. What is kingdom building? Let's start there. So, kingdom building really is this idea where you care about everyone, right? When you are going out and building a kingdom, it's not enough to just care about the alliance that you're in. If you're going in with a project, unless you have multiple alliances, it's not just about caring about them. It's about caring about everybody. And that is really what the true definition is of kingdom building. It's more than just you, it's more than them, it's everyone, inclusive. And what that means is that if you're going to put yourself in a situation or a position to where you as an individual and or your governing body has a majority presence in the kingdom, where you are able to, I don't usually like to say the word dictate, but to, let's say, guide a kingdom in a direction, it is almost incumbent upon you to make sure that you are doing the best job that you can to build the kingdom in the way that you and or the governing body wants to guide it, right? Wants to see it in those end goals, right? Those end goals come to fruition. Now, whether that's you want to build a kingdom that is incredibly peaceful and focuses on 100% development, doesn't really do any PvP. Maybe you want to have a kingdom that focuses on development with some PvP. Maybe you want to have a kingdom that's half development, half PvP. Maybe you want a kingdom that's mostly PvP, but some development. Maybe you want a kingdom that just does nothing but PvP 24/7. It's just a battle royale all day long, and that's how you sell it to people. Excuse me, wherever you land, this idea is that you should hopefully be trying to figure that out, right? Where you decide and on not only on the direction, but hopefully what is in the best interest of the players. And I think there's a few things that when we talk about kingdom building that you have to approach the game with, the mindset with, is that, one, the idea behind kingdoms in general, along with if you're someone who's going to kind of manage multiple groups or, again, try and be someone who views and looks at the kingdom as a whole, is that you want to have the most amount of activity, right? So you want to have the most amount of active players. If you could have 2, 3, 4, 5,000 active players, I'm sure you would, right? Who wouldn't want that? And then two, how do I retain the most amount of players, right? How do I keep turnover low? Right, whether that's, and that just is general kind of player drop-off. So how am I limiting the amount of players that want to migrate out, the amount of players that want to stop playing, the players that have poor experiences, that maybe want to move alliances, or they're just, again, kind of losing their general activity, maybe their engagement's dropping. There are multiple areas of interest that you as someone who's looking to focus on kingdom building has to really consider and has to always think about, right? Because the example we usually give is that you have a water bottle and you poke a hole, right? So here's my water cup, right? So you have a water cup, and let's just say there's a hole on the bottom, and it's a very tiny hole, but the water is constantly coming out, and you have to think about, how can I make this hole at the bottom of my cup as small as humanly possible? How can I make it the smallest thing ever, where it just is like the tiny, like it drips once a day, right? As an example. Right, so that way eventually you can fill your cup, right? You can fill the cup with more water. And that happens through things like migration, etc., others. However, the reason I really believe kingdom building is a lost art, because there's not really a lot of people. I mean, think about how many people you know, along with how many creators out there that focus on kingdom health and kingdom building. There's not really any. I don't know any creators outside of myself that really talk about these on a regular basis, along with the player base. I mean, there might be a few more players than there are creators, that will probably be more advocates for this. And most of the time, you're usually seeing this happening from people that have played Kingdom Builders before. You don't typically see this from first-time Kingdom Builders coming in that are focusing on more kind of kingdom aspects versus alliance approaches, right? And it's usually from players that have played games like Rock or Infinity Kingdom, just other kingdom builders where they've been in a leadership style position or in a council level position, and they've been able to kind of see the inner workings. Because most of the time, as a player from the outside, you're just an average member, you're usually not going to be exposed to what's happening on a management level, because usually what happens on a management level is that you're talking and you're getting more information, more data on what's happening within each of the alliances within a kingdom, and you're able to have more hands-on meetings with other officers or other leads, so you're kind of getting better water temperature gauges for what's happening, and then you're kind of essentially summarizing that up to what's happening in the kingdom. So you're able to have a little bit more of a pulse, or your finger on a pulse, compared to being a member on the outside, right? Where you might be in the trenches, right? But what's actually happening across all the alliances is a little bit harder to gauge. And so for me, when it comes to building a kingdom, those are kind of the easy approaches. It's how do we keep the most amount of players active, and then how do we reduce the amount of potential player drop-off that's happening. And that usually comes from, again, having a kingdom-wide mindset where we're not just caring about one person or one alliance, we're caring about everybody. And that is why I say it's kind of a lost art, because you just don't really have, it's a lost art / kind of new approach, right? I'll give it kind of a combo title there. Because on one side, there have been people that have done this before. Obviously, I don't know too many people offhand that I could really name you, so to speak. But we do know that if you look at games like Rock, Infinity Kingdom, others, there are kingdoms you can look at in most cases where, and especially even now, where you go into a kingdom and, you know, usually you're always going to have some type of project or jump group that's going into most of these, where the idea behind it is really to, again, keep the kingdom as active and healthy as possible. So for me, when I go into a kingdom, that's a lot of what I'm thinking about, is how can I immediately reach out, establish good connections with everyone, start building rapport, right? Try and get as many of the alliance leaders and officers into a kingdom Discord, right? So we can kind of start discussing and having conversations and making introductions and talking shop about the game and what some of the goals and hopes are in the kingdom, right? While at the same time, right, limiting the need or the words of saying, well, you know, you're going to get this and you're going to get that. I mean, there's right and kind of wrong ways to approach those particular situations, and that might be a topic or topics for another video. But again, I just really believe that is where the value lies when we're talking about building kingdoms. And to really kind of hammer this home on why is it that you'd want to focus on something like that, well, let's be fair. The game isn't really doing it any justice in, like, there's no tooltips, right, on how to manage a kingdom. There's no tooltips on how to manage alliances, right? People are kind of in the, you know, I don't, not just use the in the trenches again, but really people are kind of on their own, right, when it comes to figuring those things out outside of any guide videos that we may have as creators, or you might be able to find online, or if people have things that they've written up. It's kind of, you know, you for yourself when you're thinking about going in and starting an alliance, right? You might refer back to maybe some guild management games for people that have played WoW or other types of games where you're managing a group of people, right? So I'm sure there will be some experience there that some bring over into CoD from other titles. Though when we talk about this idea of why do we even care to focus on a kingdom versus an alliance, well, I'll tell you why. Because when you're in a new kingdom and you're getting populated, right? So new kingdoms usually are being populated with restart accounts and then new downloads. If you look at the first Augerstone chapter in a Season 1 kingdom, the chapter is 7,500 players have to reach level 4 in order for that to be completed. That factors into when that new kingdom will eventually not be the newest kingdom, and then the players that are coming in from new downloads will stop, and then they'll go to the next newest kingdom. In my view, that is not the healthiest way that the developers on the dev side can support and assist kingdoms in being as healthy as they can. It's one of the reasons why when you see me do projects and I go into kingdoms, I go in, as far as one of the areas, I go in with multiple alliances and I go in with hundreds of players. Why? Because it's meant to bring in engaged activity. There's a big difference between general activity or new activity versus engaged activity. I want the activity that's coming into a kingdom to already have a foundation, to already have a baseline to operate from, versus someone who's more likely to be brand new to the game coming in from a new download. And what I mean by that more specifically is that, let's say you're brand new to the game. You don't really know anything about it, right? You just downloaded it, you populated in, and then maybe you went to go watch some YouTube videos and went to go join the Discord. Compared to me running a project and us prepping for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and players already having an opportunity to read up on everything they need to. Maybe they've already made test accounts to test things out on so they can kind of figure out what their pathing would be in certain areas, what are they going to focus on early on. They've already had a chance to read guides, consume a lot of resource material and content, so that way they already have a pretty good understanding of what they need to be doing from castle level 1 to 25, right? Along with also being a part of an engaged group, which means that we're more likely to be active in world chat, more likely to be active in alliance chat, more likely to already have game plans down for how we're going to play the game throughout the entire season. That's engaged activity versus non-engaged, or what we should say is new activity, right? Where the players are coming in and they just don't necessarily they don't have their bearings down yet. Those are situations that are more likely to increase and to bleed out over to other players in a kingdom that will also keep their activity engaged, right? And potentially more motivated to keep playing there. Because now they're thinking to themselves, wow, we're a part of a group here. And then there's other factors that go in there as well. But the idea being is that if I was to design how a new kingdom was going to be populated, I would say that instead of having it be 7,500 players, I would say 10,000 players. 10,000 players need to hit level 12 before a new kingdom is populated. Because you're most likely going to get more players than 10,000. But you're at least guaranteeing that the 10,000 players are hitting level 12 first. And remember, the longer you play, the higher castle level you get to, the more likely you are to keep playing the game. Right? Level 4 is the same as, to me, level 2, level 3, level 4, right? Or level 2, level 3, right? It's the same thing, right? It doesn't take that long to hit level 4. So you can probably do that within 30 minutes, right? With max helps or less time than that. And so that's why there needs to be a period of where we're filling up kingdoms in a healthy way, even if it takes 1 to 2 days before a new kingdom is released. I would rather have that and a kingdom be populated in a healthy way with more activity versus less activity. And to hammer this point home, I'll probably do this in a separate video. If you look at how new kingdoms are being populated versus how older kingdoms were being populated, it's pretty night and day. If you look at kingdoms from, let's say, 20 through 40, maybe through 50, you had such a higher level of influx of players. Because, again, this was right around pre-global release, inter-global release, and then post-global release. You had kingdoms where at the end of season 1, they had, 10 to 15 active alliances. On average now, when you look at kingdoms that are, again, I think the newest ones are like 250 plus is where we're at now. But you look at these kingdoms along with ones going back even to like 150 plus. You were seeing at the end of season 1, there being anywhere from maybe 1 to 3, right? Maybe 2 to 4 in some, but usually 1 to 3 active alliances, or maybe 2 to 3 if I'm giving a little conservative there, that you're now seeing at the end of season 1. And that is really, I feel, incredibly detrimental to the game as a whole. And like I said, it's because inherently we want to play with more players generally than less. And this appeals more to a kingdom building mindset versus an alliance building mindset, right? The reason why you can make the argument that some alliances or that some kingdoms have a few amount of alliances is because, one, the kingdoms aren't being populated in the healthiest way possible or in an ideal healthy way possible at the moment, which again, that can change and there are solutions, as I just said. But on top of, there not really being tutorials for, or even just tips on approaches that players and or alliances can take in the game. And so again, and this is just me saying a few things here, right? I could go on for a lot longer, but I hope that at least helps give an understanding for why it is that I like to approach the games within this genre, as I refer to as kingdom builders, with a kingdom building mindset versus an alliance building mindset. I'd rather have 2,000, 3,000 players in a kingdom versus 150 to 300 people or 400 people, right? Where you're having 1 to 3 alliances worth of players. I can do more with more activity versus only being able to do less with less activity. Doesn't mean that you can't do anything with less activity, but you can't do as much as you think you can when you don't have enough players that are able to do certain things across the kingdom. So with that, I'm going to pass the question off to you guys. Let me know what you think. Have you been a part of a kingdom that really has had a kingdom mindset? And then what were the pros and cons maybe you noticed? And then if you were part of a kingdom that maybe only had 1 to 2 active alliances, right, what were the pros and cons? What did you notice? I would be curious. So let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, I will catch you later.